So, without further delay, if you could take some time to listen to Jim, who's the CEO of the Irish Computer Society.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I just wanted to say you're very welcome, and we're delighted to be supporting the IT architects community in Ireland. I just want to commend Nick and the executive team about the work that they do. There's a lot of passion there. In fact, I'd say you're right up there for the most passionate group we have, really in support of your own community. And anything that we can do to support that is really what our job is. One of the things that I like to emphasize to all of the various sectoral constituents of the Computer Society is to remind them that we have many different sectors that you may be interested in, and that you might just dip in and dip out of. But we now have a method by which, once you join one of the sectors of the association, like the IT Architects Association, you're completely eligible to join the Health Informatics Society of Ireland, for instance, or the Data Protection Officers Association. And that's all part of what you can do as a member of the society. And I think now we're up to 6 different associations under the umbrella of the society. So by all means, don't hide yourself in just one sector if you do see yourself interested in other areas as well. Continuous professional development is something that we're absolutely committed to as an association, as the society. It's something you're going to hear more about, and how you can build your own CPD points, and hopefully something you can integrate into your own careers as well, if it's something you see as useful to you. That's really all I wanted to say. I just wanted to say, really, we're delighted that it is the second, and the success is growing. And again, compliments to the executive committee for the great work that's been done. So, thanks very much, and have a great day.
Hi, I'd like to welcome everyone here today. So I'm Michael Callan. I'm the president of Iasa Ireland. It's great to see a full house here for the second year in a row. We're going from strength to strength with the Iasa team here in Ireland. We've 15 of us now who are driving IT architecture in Ireland. And with that number of people, we're starting to do more and more things. There's been a lot of work this year on government engagement. So from ministers down, we've been talking to government about how IT architecture can play a role in making public sector government projects work. People are starting to get the sense of what IT architecture can offer them in terms of planning, making projects work. Something like 6 out of 10 IT projects can fail. So how do we go about changing that? How do we bring a strategic level of thinking to government level projects that isn't there in the proper sense that it should be? In terms of certifications, I know a number of you have done the Iasa Foundation course. We've through the ICS, we run a number of courses to train people as IT architects at different levels. So whether it's at the foundation level, the associate level, or then up at the more experienced level of the CTP or CTS, there's a lot of stuff there. So we would encourage people to look at that. It is a proper certified framework for industry recognition, and we know a number of companies, with talking to people in the central bank or Dell, these companies who are corporate members of ours, who are actively saying when they're recruiting people, they're looking for these certifications now, so it's very important. We're doing a lot of work trying to get content out there, getting groups on LinkedIn, discussing issues that relate to IT architecture. Some of the talks you're going to hear today on agile, on innovation, on Claudio's popcorn. These things are going to interest conversation. We want people to engage with us online, to share this information and build a proper community in Ireland. The Iasa Global organisation itself, it's different from the other stuff that you see like TOGAF or the Zachman framework. We're a people's framework, so we're not about saying this is a framework you use, you follow this, and this step. It's about decision making, it's about business acumen, it's about the human dynamics we bring to the table. So, all architects will say the technology-based skill set is most important, and it is, and we're not moving away from that. We're saying absolutely that's a prerequisite. What we're also saying is the ability to find out what the business wants, to flesh out business requirements, to work with the business at a strategic level to make IT work for them. That's, I think, a key part of what the Iasa framework brings. It's always been a small set of IT architecture, but it's growing, and I think that's where the future is, being able to have that skill set to deliver for the business. So that's what we're all about. I think we've got a great lineup of speakers here today. Very interesting topics. We're going to have our AGM then afterwards, so people are welcome to stay for that. And there's going to be a few drinks then later on. So thanks everyone for coming, and I hope you have a really good day.
Okay, so without further ado, it gives me great pleasure in introducing Dr. Jonathan Reichenthal, CIO of Palo Alto. He's going to speak on how to inspire teams. So, Jonathan,
great.
Please.
Thank you very much. What's the likelihood that he would have the same last name as me in the same room? Such an unusual name. That's the biggest surprise that I've had today so far. Does this actually do anything, this mic? Or, pardon? Recording, awesome. So, okay, yeah, it's worth having it. Thank you very much. I'm going to be my job is to ease you into the day, because this is the soft topic. It gets harder from here, apparently. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's probably best that we just sort of ramp up slowly as coffee and sugar and things just kick in. So we'll have a bit of fun with this. It's less of a talk and more of a workshop. So I'm looking forward to you participating in my little talk here this morning. So I wanted to start just with a little background on who I am. I'm Irish. I was born here in Dublin and grew up here, went to school here. And almost 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to the United States. And all in technology, by the way. Everything I've done and every organization I worked for has been in a technology role with increasing levels of leadership along the way. And it's now almost 4 years ago, although I can't believe it, after almost 25 years in the private sector, I got a phone call from a headhunter, and the person said, would you consider working for government? And I have to say that I wasn't seeking it out, but the important quality is that you stop and potentially listen, because you never know what a person is going to say and what opportunity might present itself. So I was open-minded, and I said, tell me more. Tell me more about this opportunity. And the recruiter said, well, it's the city of Palo Alto. And I knew a little bit about the city. It is the birthplace of Silicon Valley, and it's called often the heart of Silicon Valley. And depending who you talk to, that's because either it was HP, Hewlett and Packard, who created the first business out of a garage. By the way, a little factoid, they didn't know what they were going to do. They just liked each other as friends, and they knew after studying at Stanford they would do something together. And, of course, the rest is history. The other story is that it was a semiconductor industry. It was Fairchild Semiconductors, which really started the influx of engineers to the West Coast and to the Silicon Valley area. So I said, well, that's really interesting. Tell me more. And I went down to the city, and I spoke with the city manager, and I was impressed. He had a very compelling vision for what he wanted to do with the city of Palo Alto. The other thing that was really interesting to me is when you think about a city like Palo Alto, you might automatically assume, because it's an innovative community, an innovative area, that the government would also be quite innovative and adopt innovative technologies. And sadly, that was not the case. And so that was the compelling attraction to me. Here was an amazing city that was not living up to the responsibility it had as the heart of Silicon Valley. So I figured I'd jump in and see what I could do. Could I move the needle forward? And I was really surprised, and I want to share a few things about that. So just a little background so you can get a lay of the land. Palo Alto is in the San Francisco area. It's likely some of you have been there or probably in the area. It's 30 miles. It should take 20 minutes by car, but it's totally random, and it can be everything from 20 minutes to 3 hours. And I go often to San Francisco, it's tough. It's tough, particularly by car. The transportation systems there are suboptimal. We have this great little school up the street, which is beautiful and churns out really smart people every so often. I was having just a coffee with the CEO, one of the co-founders of a company called Palantir, a leading tech company now. And we were on the balcony of his business on University Avenue in Palo Alto. And we were talking and saying, why do you pay such a premium for real estate here when you could be elsewhere? You don't have to be here. And he said, because I can see the exit door of Stanford University. And I can see the students coming out. We're going to hire them. And it was sort of inspirational for him. Palo Alto is a pretty special and interesting place. It's an outlier. It's not like every other American city. It's in its category for its size. It is, year after year, rated the most livable city in the United States. We had set targets by 2020 that the energy we consume would be all carbon neutral, and we beat that by almost 6 years. Last year, the city became a totally carbon-free, neutral consuming city, so we only use energy from hydro, solar, and wind. So that gives you a little sense. Just another tidbit, because I'm in front of a tech audience, we were the first city in the world to have a municipal website. That's another little tidbit there. So I came in December 2011. I said, what do we got here? What am I dealing with? And so what I did recognize was the team and the people I had were really excited about being in Palo Alto and loved the work. But they didn't have a vision. They didn't have leadership. Didn't know what they were doing. So it was like a group of people who were together in a physical space, but were not together in their mindset and their alignment with the city. And so I worked hard on that. You know, you do the tech stuff, and you can buy stuff and you can get advice. But if you really work on people, you can make a real difference. And that's what I've learned through my career. And, we set a very bold vision, which is really the heart of what I want to share with you today. And why we reached and exceeded that vision had less to do with technology and much more to do with leadership, inspiration, and ultimately embracing innovation in all its qualities. So the two goals I have, hopefully we can achieve these together today, are what is the connection between creating innovative teams, organizations, and people, and the role of you as a leader being inspiring and creating inspiration in your organization. And, I came a long way to do this. So I want to make sure I really add value. So I'm going to give you actionable steps, things you can do when you get back to the office on Monday morning. And so if I do even partially part of these, hopefully it's been useful for you today. So we're going through a really interesting recalibration of the workforce right now. Right? Take a look at some of these statistics over the last few years. The last one is particularly interesting. 70%, I bet you that's the case in your organizations too. Ask your people. Ask anyone in your staff, your peers, or even your bosses, what's the vision statement or mission of this company that you belong to, that you come to every day and spend your time in here? Most will not know the answer to that, and wow, that's a gap. You don't even know why you're coming to work. You don't even know the purpose, really, of your organization, what your leadership believes in, and potentially what your customers are looking for. So we've got to fill this gap. I mean, we're moving, the things that are not captured here, we're moving to a world where more and more of the population don't have any alignment with businesses. In America, we're closing in on 40% of the working population are freelancers now. And that number is going to increase over time. I expect the numbers are similar, or going to be similar, here too. And the other big sort of time bomb in all this is the demographic time bomb. Massive retirements from the workforce. In the U.S., 10,000 people retire every single day. 10,000 people. So we're losing brains. We're losing sort of the old guard and the people who were really passionate about the work. So we have a real crisis around the workforce, and we're going to have to require and use completely new tools to address these challenges. And whether you are an individual contributor, a team lead, or manager or director, you're all leaders, and that's what I want to talk about. So let's start with getting your participation. Firstly, everybody knows this logo, right? Pretty much, yeah. What's your reaction when you see this logo? What kind of an organization is reflected in this logo? Pardon? A positive image, yeah, totally. Anything else? Slick, yeah. It's clean, yeah. What's the tagline for this company, for Nike? Just do it, yeah. Wow. You know that, and you don't know your own organization's vision, right? That's success. Let's look at some others. So I want to get two answers from you around each of these. There's only going to be a couple, or a small set. One is, what's the tagline, and how do you feel when you look at it? So what's the tagline for Vegas? Yeah, that's right. And I can vouch for that. That's very true. What do you think of Vegas, and what do you think about it? Do you have a positive or negative view?
Generally negative.
Okay.
Think of old Sinatra movies and
Tacky, okay.
Big circus.
Yeah, sort of wild, yeah. Okay. And it's really interesting you make those observations. Vegas knows that, and they're working hard to change that. That's what people generally think. This one? They've had a few, but what's their sort of contemporary one? Anybody know this one? No? Let's Don't Leave Home Without It. Remember that? What do you think about American Express? Maybe it's not a very strong brand here. Not so much, okay. Sort of a corporate, okay. Kind of stuffy, maybe?
Yeah, they had a really strong worldwide presence because in the 80s I was in the US and working for GE, and you were given the American Express card, and wherever you went, there they were.
Yes.
They had offices everywhere. It was actually quite impressive.
Ubiquitous.
It was very quiet in the last decade.
Yeah. It's interesting, yeah. They're not in the limelight anymore. Others are. But still a very big and successful organization. KFC, anybody know the tagline? Yeah, that's right. Who said that? Is it? Oh, you okay? Yeah. Finger licking good. That's right. And positive, negative, neutral. How do you feel about that?
Negative.
A negative feeling. Why do you say negative?
Flattery.
Not.
There's been some scandals, I guess, so not calling them chicken anymore because they're not. So.
Right. Okay. Any others? Or? Okay. Good. And finally, I think this is the last one. What's the tagline? No, that's a Volkswagen, right? Yes, the ultimate driving machine, and the ultimate driving machine. What do you think when you see that logo? Quality. Yeah, quality, nice.
German,
Strength and German qualities. Who said that? Yeah. Reliable. Okay. Wow. So thank you. Over-engineered. Increasingly, I think. Yeah. So big global brands and very distinctive views you have. You probably don't know, in some cases, why you have the views you have. We just have those views. We immediately had an emotional reaction to the logo. They work hard at these things. BMW works really, really hard. So you think about reliability and engineering and quality. Those are not qualities that are just you grabbed out of thin air. These organizations work really hard to do that. I wanted to ask you this question when you look at these sort of four icons. First of all, which one is most inspiring to you? When you look at this picture, do you see one? What's the thing that says, like, wow, I completely... that aligns with me. And by the way, for those of you who don't, this is Michael Jordan. Probably you all know that. Okay. Anybody want to jump in? And so now you immediately hone in on NASA. And why is that?
Just like I can remember, the first thing I saw on television was the moon landing. That was the first day we got the television to see.
Remarkable, right? Remarkable. Who else? Something else that jumps out to people? Pardon?
Jobs.
That's okay. You might be inspired by Bill Gates. I just don't have him on the page. So Steve Jobs is somebody who resonates with you. Why is that?
I read the autobiography. Some of his ideas. It was Jobs.
His ideas were the things that resonate with you. And then five. Let's get one more. Anybody else? Anybody who's not NASA and Steve Jobs?
Well, NASA to me is bureaucracy.
Okay.
There's a lot of that.
That's right.
I do like Jobs because of, despite his weaknesses, like
Mm-hmm.
he did move things.
Yeah.
Google was big at some point, and now it's becoming big. So
Yes.
again, it's flawed.
Yeah. Good. So pretty much, we have an emphasis on the two to the right. That's kind of an interesting, just ad hoc scientific survey on my part. I do this presentation quite a lot, so it's interesting to see, dependent on the country and the audience, which one resonates. As you can imagine, with a lot of American audiences who are not typically technical, Michael Jordan is by far iconic in the U.S. And I think in Silicon Valley, Google really has the mindset of a lot of people. But you're responding to these people and images because they mean something to you, and you have an emotional reaction. And so we could play the same role with each of you. We could ask your team members or your colleagues, what's the reaction they have to you? And ask yourself rhetorically, just internally, if they thought of you, do they think of leadership and someone who inspires the best out of me, and someone who wants to innovate and move the needle forward? Or are they thinking, this person is the opposite of all those things? So it's something to kind of think about and internalize. These brands and people work hard at that, not necessarily deliberately, although perhaps it's Steve Jobs' ego that was a part of it. But we're learning that he just really believed and felt this and wanted to change the world. So everyone's motivation is a little different, and the emergence of this happens for different reasons. So the first sort of kind of deep dive I want to do in this is to sort of do a little discovery work on the difference between being a manager and being a leader. And these are very different things. You can kind of go to school and learn to be a manager. You can kind of learn the skills from a textbook to be a manager. It's a little harder to become a leader. And you've got to kind of look real inward and deeply into who you are, where you come from, to bring out those leadership skills. So could somebody just jump in and sort of say, what are maybe one key difference between being a manager and being a leader? What do you think of it? Yeah.
Steve Covey used to say, you manage things, you lead people.
Okay, you manage things and you lead people. I like that, actually, yeah. I like Stephen Covey a lot. Yes, hi. Yeah. Bigger appetite for failure. That's great.
So there's a whole group walking through the jungle, and they're all there with the machetes cutting down the trees. The manager's the one who keeps them moving. The leader's the one who's climbing the tree and looking out to see which way to go and say, tips over there, the mountains over there.
Great. Yeah. That's a really nice, memorable metaphor for thinking about it. I really like that. So I like to come up with sort of, or learn kind of simple ways of determining the two. And I particularly like this, that has really sort of resonated with me over the years, is when you're a manager, you just make sure that you're doing the right things in your job. Doing things right. My apologies. Making sure you're following process, you're submitting appraisals on time, you're doing your time reports, all the process and things. But with leadership, it's more values-based. You're doing the right things. You're looking into the future. You're making judgments that are often require you to be deeply thoughtful about the organization and about your people and your people's feelings in terms of how will you get the best from them, and how will you create this bigger picture set of activities rather than focusing on the minutia of the things just in front of you. I mean, great qualities in people are a mix of the two, by the way. It's not a choice, but they do require, if you're going to be a leader who inspires, you really want to be thinking about strong values. So what are some of the qualities, what are some of the things that managers and leaders do? I mean, they manage. I got a set of 4 or 5 here that are pretty common. What are the kind of just adjectives that, verbs that describe the things that managers and leaders do. What would
Leaders have vision.
vision? Okay. Yep. Great.
Managers manage that vision.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Organize, control.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. Those. Yeah. Exactly. The people who organize things, control things. Maybe one more.
Correct.
Excellent. I think we got all of them almost. Good. You've seen my deck, I think. Plan. They make things happen. These are common, verbs that you'll see in books about leadership. It's interesting, actually. There's one that you missed. Communicate, I think, is the next one. Oh, I spoiled it. Anyway, I thought communicate was up there. It's going to come up in a moment. But clearly, the one thing that great managers and great leaders do is an actual activity. It's a thing you do, is to inspire. And so we are naturally thinking about planning and directing, controlling, and making decisions and problem solving. I'd ask that today you add inspire onto the list of things you do as part of your work, regardless of where you are in the hierarchy. So if you think about what we do as technologists and architects and CIOs and strategists, it's a pretty tough place right now. Technology got very complicated suddenly, right? It really did. We're managing for multiple, platforms now. There's amazing interdependency between systems and operating systems and managing the flow of data and keeping it secure. So it often feels like the work we do is the art of firefighting. I have not met an IT organization yet in my 25 years of my career where supply is bigger than the demand for technology. Has anyone seen that? No, it hasn't happened. Despite how excited we are about new technology, it often doesn't work, or it's really hard to make it work. We love certain technologies because they work very well and they're easy to use, but that's more rare than it's common. And we get these other commentary. I've just found as my career has progressed in technology, the demands just to do more and do more and do it more quickly. There's an enormous appetite in a world that's software driven, and that's the one in which we're living now. What's the result of all this chaos? Well, the result is certainly you're seeing in different manifestations the burnout of your staff. They're feeling it. If they're apathetic, they're not enthusiastic every single day, they may be suffering from burnout, from stress. Your product might have lower quality. It seems to me when you probably have your team meetings or talk to your close colleagues that it just seems like all we're doing every day is managing chaos. We're not actually moving the needle forward in an organized, quality way. And at the end of the day, if these things are happening, your staff aren't excited about your vision if they know it, right? So we have to change the game around this environment. We have to use as many tools as we can to have great teams to do great things, deliver high-quality products. When people ask me, they ask me, what do you like about your work? Well, a couple of things I say. I have to make sure that every day I'm jumping into my car and can't wait to get to work. Right. Does everyone feel that way? Right? Okay. If you do, you're one of the lucky ones. If you don't, you need to work on that. If you're in this short mortal existence we have, if you're not excited every day, find a different job or find out how you can get excited. I get into the car and can't wait. Like the time for me getting up and getting to my office it's too long. I need to get in there and start doing the work. I'm excited and motivated because of the environment that inspires me. And so when people ask, what is it that's most important about your job? And they're expecting me to say, well, I love cloud computing, or this new software as a service is just great. Actually, I never answer the question with technology. My answer is, I'm happiest and most excited about my work when my team members are. If I can make a difference in their lives, that's the most important privilege I have as a leader. Not that I can sign off on a procurement so they can deploy something. If they come to work and they say, Jonathan, I love being here. Can't wait to start this project. That is the measurement of success for me. And you have to work really, really hard at that. Really hard. So when you look at the top motivators to change the game here, you have a few levers, right? And what I want to show you are the results of the combination of several surveys around the contemporary workforce and what really motivates people. So it's not that none of these are motivational. What I want to ask you is, what are the top motivators? So we'll go through them, and let's see what you think. Is money a top-tier motivator for people to get excited about their work? What do you think? No, so you're pretty informed. It turns out there's actually a number. Turns out it's about $65,000, which you do the math in your head. Once you actually pass that number, people don't care as much about money. And it also matters if your work is sort of right-brained versus left-brained. If it's right-brained and you're doing creative work, the number is less important. If you're doing left-brain work where it's routine, typically money matters more. But at some point, about $65,000 and beyond, it's less motivational than you would think. So we got that score, 100% on that. How about just showing appreciation for people? Is that a high one? One of the top ones? Yeah, everyone's nodding. You got that right. One of the things people worry about is, am I going to have a job tomorrow? How important is some sort of level of job security? Minimal-ish, or?
There's a certain level that you want, and then beyond that.
Right. Okay. That's right. That's right. How about the physical workspace, a place that's beautiful and bright and clean? And
I think it can be a demotivator, but not really a motivator.
Interesting.
If you're in a bad environment, it takes away from it. But you get a chair and a desk, and it's clean and warm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a fairly good description. I think you're spot on. It's not, if the temperatures are way off, it's going to be problematic. But we'll assume things are fairly good. It's not a big contributor. Good organizational communication. You can figure that's pretty high. Yeah, everyone's nodding on that one. That's correct. And you can probably guess the role of inspiration. So my last question on this slide is, of the, what do we got here, 4 top motivators, what is the number one motivator for staff? The number one, not by a little bit, by a long shot. Appreciation. I would say it's, anybody disagree with that? Yes, sir. Inspiration, you think, is by a long shot number one? See, this is an outlier. This guy's brave to say that. I think there's no doubt that appreciation is way up there. But you'll be surprised that by a long shot, the quality that employees want from their leadership and their environment is inspiration. And it's based on good scientific surveys. By the way, inspiration is not something that necessarily costs money. It's not something you have to ask for, right? The others are actually quite hard to do. Inspiration is something you can do on Monday morning. Okay, so I'm going to give you all a new job. You are now Chief Inspiration Officers. You didn't know it, but you just got promoted. So when they invited me over here, they said, that's your role, Jonathan, is to promote a group of people into a new title. Each of you, in your minds, you don't have to tell anybody, you are now Chief Inspiration Officers. And I'm going to kind of talk about just a very quick 3-step process. It has to be a 3-step process, you know. And then we'll wrap up. That'll get you set up for the rest of the day. So the first thing I want to talk about is the art and science of creating a vision. And let's be broad in our definition. The vision can be for you as an individual. It can be for your team. It can be for your organization. It can be for your industry. So we're not restricting it. We're thinking about and talking about vision in the broadest sense. And you know, this comes up a lot, mission versus vision. Quick thoughts on what the distinction is. I think somebody said it earlier as an answer to a different question. Anybody know what the... Where you're going versus how you get there. Okay, yeah. Where you're going versus how you get there. It's a good one. Other thoughts? So basically, the mission is more focused on what you're doing right now We make the following. We are focused on doing quality products, quality services, and a vision is what you aspire to be, where you're headed, more of the long-term vision. Long-term. Okay, so I want you to look at this example. Here is a vision statement. And by the way, it is laughable. It's real. You can't make this stuff up. Right? This is a real. So let's look at this. Pardon? I don't think this is Nike's vision statement. So this is what a particular organization believes everybody should believe in and understand and really walk to. Let's look at some of it. I'll read it out. Develop, deploy, and manage a diverse set of scalable and strategic knowledge management tools to serve our customers, improving the possibility of overall satisfaction among our diverse customer profiles. One of the things I see here is it's whoever wrote it sort of winging it. It's sort of on the fence, right? The possibility. I hope it works out. Good. How would you rate this? Yeah, thumbs down. This guy gives it a big thumbs down. Any other? You think it's okay?
It looks like someone took 10 missions online and put it into the beach at the end.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's what they did.
Each of whose contribution had to be included.
It's to the point where it became meaningless, right? What did you?
It might be useful as a way of capturing the key things we want to communicate, but then you kind of go, right, how do we get it down to 4 words? So.
Right. Yeah. It's trying to do too much, and get it all in one sentence. Well, one of the things that strikes me when you look at this vision is, if I'm an employee, and what do I do? What do I do in my day-to-day work to align with this? It's not quite clear what I do and what that means to me. And so it doesn't work. It's sort of meaningless. If you swap out knowledge management tools, you could actually put anything in there in any tool or any product. It's a pointless vision statement. And let's compare and contrast this with this vision statement. So I'll read it. Some of you, it's nicely aligns with your example earlier about the black and white TV. This nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. It is a real vision statement, actually. It was a vision statement for of course, the Apollo missions. You like it? You don't like it? What are your reactions to it?
I like it, and I especially the bit that kind of gets missed in some vision statements and returning him safely to Earth.
Yeah.
Finishing it off.
Yeah.
I guess the difference there is also that finishes time. I can actually measure that. I can see
It's measurable.
in time the outcome of this. But the other one is more like
Good.
ever-present.
Ever present. You said two important things. This vision statement has an outcome, and it's measurable. And because of that, I kind of know what to do. It doesn't matter who I am on this particular group. And by the way, hundreds of thousands of people worked on the moon program. Ultimately, everybody was just excited and motivated to get things done.
I'm sorry, it's very specific. The who is this nation.
The who?
It's not a few people in NASA, it's this nation.
Yes. Yeah. Good.
The wishy-washy bit at the start.
Yes. Yeah.
That's opening a debate. It's not a directive.
Mm-hmm.
It says this nation should.
Yes.
That's opening a debate. It's not a directive.
Yeah.
What he should have said was this nation will. That would have been a directive.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, good observation. Yeah. So clear distinctions, and because all of you are you're super bright in terms of like being able to analyze it. Think of the things that that work in that second one, and think about what a vision statement looks like for your team as you start to progress on this journey. So let's make this personal. This is the vision statement that we came up for the city of Palo Alto when I joined. I hope it is meaningful to you to build and enable a leading digital city. I guess it has an outcome, measurable, maybe not so much. I'll concede to that. Pardon?
Some survey maybe can rate it.
Yes, after this you could create the metrics and the survey way to measure it. So build and enable leading digital city. People know every single day, why on earth do we come to work? Because you are helping to build and enable something. So real clear, no ambiguity. That's why we come to work every single day. And I just want to remind you of that statistic early in our conversation today. When I ask anybody on my team what a vision statement is, they can all say this immediately. It's memorable. They know exactly what it is. 70% of organizations don't know what their vision statement is. And I urge you to test that on Monday morning or make a phone call at the break. I think we'll validate these numbers. So we've created a vision. Now, with that vision, how do we codify it? How do we actually make sense of it? Because the worst thing you want to do, and I think you'd all agree with this, is you spend a lot of time creating a vision, and then you put it on a shelf, and then whenever looks at it, it has no meaning, and it was a worthless activity. And I think as you think about mission statements and vision statements, that's probably how you feel about it. And so that shouldn't be the case, because you can really use this to your advantage. So what is codifying your vision into your organization or your team mean? Well, it means baking it into every activity you do. In team meetings, when the discussion gets lost, as it often does, why are we having this meeting? We're halfway in, we don't know why we're meeting. Remind people of the vision. Does the meeting align with the vision? Bake it into your projects. The reason why we are deploying this software or architecting this thing is because we want to build and enable a leading digital city. Connect the work you're doing with the vision. Connect it. Put it in all communications. And actually, as you hire, you want to get people excited. You want people just demanding to be part of your team. And so let me share with you a little personal story. 4 years ago, when I joined the city of Palo Alto, and we had an IT opening, we were lucky if we got a handful of people who applied. Now, part of that is there's lots of choices in Silicon Valley. I can see Google from my office. You can see Facebook. You've got some of the leading tech companies in the world with great opportunities. Who wants to work for local government in that type of environment? And I can get that. The second thing is, we're talking some big money here. And when it is, it's down to we can pay so much, they can pay twice, 3 times the amount. We're not even talking about money. I can't say come to the city, we'll pay you really well. And so fast forward to now, we have openings today. When we have an opening today, hundreds of people apply. And when I ask them, why are they interviewing? Why are they part of it? They answer just in one sentence, almost in different words, is we love the vision you have. We want to be part of that vision. We don't even talk about money. We don't even talk about Google, And that's a real shift. These are real results. The stuff I'm talking about today isn't abstract. So codify it into everything you do. And finally, people love this, is when you start to do these types of initiatives, is actually demonstrate progress. Creating the vision, codifying it, and then actually not measuring it later on, to your point, is missing the third final core component of inspiring and moving your team forward. So in late 2011, myself and my team created this vision to build and enable a leading digital city. And we worked hard at it. And in November 2013, 2 years later, we were named the #1 digital city in America. Right? Now, we had a little bit of luck, a little bit of hard work, but a heck of a lot of inspiration. A lot of inspiration. And then we measured it. And we told people about it. We told people every single day that was our vision and that's some of our results. Now, we're not done yet. But once people connect the result with the vision, it becomes really, really meaningful. So there's your 3-step process. So let's have a review as we wrap up here. And let me ask you, just by nods or however you'd like to express it, did we meet our goals today? We said we were going to do 2 things. One was for me to explain why inspiration and creating innovative, motivated, excited teams are so connected. We talked about the fact that's because inspiration actually is the #1 motivator of staff today. When people are motivated, they work for companies that end up having amazing brands like BMW and Nike and Google. You were, at the beginning of this, didn't know, but you're part of testing that hypothesis. And you all agreed. They were strong brands with strong products. And the other goal we had today was to actually give you a few little tips and tricks and skills that you can do starting on Monday morning at the office. You have a better sense of now some of the tools that you can use. If someone's going to leave, you could offer them some more money, but maybe you can engage them instead in how they could help to inspire greatness and lead in your organization. I gave you a 3-step process that you can start immediately, or if you're underway, continue. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you. Thank you. Will I take a question or two? Okay. So I'll take a question or two. Any reactions? It doesn't even have to be a question. Sir.
I don't have a vision. Succinct or whatever. So what is a digital city, and why? Why is that a vision and what was it achieving?
Sure. Thanks for that question. Let's think about what's happening on the planet. We have over half the population of the world now lives in cities. We're an urban planet for the first time. We actually moved. We crossed that point about a year ago. 3.5 billion people, and the next 20 years or so, another 2 billion people are going to move into cities. And if you look at cities, look at some of the real crowded big cities in Southeast Asia. Things are getting tough. There's amazing duress on the transportation systems, on energy provisioning and consumption, the impact we're having on the planet, the health of people and their communities. And as more people and as the planet becomes urbanized, the need to have great cities escalates. It becomes one of our priority missions as people. It's our future homes. One of the things about cities and government, unfortunately, is it's a world of constraints. There's not enough time, not enough money, not enough people, too many projects. So if you kind of think about that, here you have more complicated cities, more needs, and more constraints. We've got to think completely differently about how governments and cities function and deliver their services. So we do have the aspiration and the goal of the good life. And what I've discovered, and many others have discovered, is clearly technology is going to play a big role in creating the great cities of the future, for transforming great cities to be even better. And so fortunately, we have a set of digital technologies that take analog processes that are often labor-intensive, are expensive, unreliable, and low quality. We convert them to digital services, and you get improvements in reliability. You can lower the cost of transactions. So the desire to become a digital city is about using the best of digital technology to do the things that governments have to do. We have, in our vision of the broader sort of deep dive on this, we want to have government in a box. Effectively, everything you do that requires you to go to City Hall today, we want you to be able to do using a smartphone. So you can pay bills, you pay your utility bill, or pay a parking ticket, or initiate a permit, or report issues, or have a complaint, or even participate in democracy. We want to do that in a digital fashion. People like that. It gets results, and it solves some of those key problems. So that's what we mean in the broader sense about what a digital city is. Yeah.
See how you can inspire your kind of technology staff and the staff who are bringing on how do you sell it to the government staff whose jobs you're potentially undermining or reducing the number of? Because it's technology change and digital, and that's not great. But since it's established, I'm more forever.
That's good. That's great. I get over the last few days, I've been doing several different events, and people are asking me, do you meet any resistance in the work that you do in some of these ideas? And I think baked into their question is the assumption that it's Silicon Valley and it's Palo Alto. People are the risk takers. They enjoy and they embrace change. And I quickly bring people down to earth and say, everything I do meets with resistance. Everything. The first answer I get to every new change is no. And there's lots of people who have lots of motivations for that, whether it's the attorney's office or policy or existing culture. So it's leadership, primarily. It's helping people understand and have a vision for how things can be. And it's asking people, it's inviting people to take a risk with you. It doesn't always work, and it's quite slow, but you work at it gradually. I mean, the opposite is to do nothing, and that, to me, is unacceptable. Yeah.
I think you hit on, for the key piece of what leadership and inspiration is about. It's about a powerful enough offer that the people that you need to follow you do follow you. Your metric, the key metric is not, you said results. The result for me, the key one, is how many people now want to work for you. Yes. How many people change their behaviour to follow your leadership offer rather than the other one, which is either to do nothing, some other guy or some other inspiration. It's the power of the leader's narrative and the power of how that narrative is actually going to be executed, how it's actually going to be delivered.
Awesome. Thank you. I mean, that's a wonderful summary of what we did today. Thank you so much for that.
So the research actually has a lot of intrinsic motivators, so for inspiration, it's called purpose or equality.
Yes,
so you have a big purpose.
Yeah.
One problem I have sometimes so we take this and Gilbert goes there and says, inspiration, exactly the anti-slogan. Stuff for others to do, like failure is not an option. And so that's which can be interpreted in different ways.
Yes.
So the question, I guess, is on your steps, one thing we did was actually to really identify a vision that is measurable, not purpose. It's more like a kind of a thought for ourselves, like not take that as now we need to begin with slogans and stuff like that.
Yeah. Good. No, thanks for that comment. So, really great audience, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the talks myself. Thank you, David. Thanks.
Next up is the S3 of CTO, and he's going to talk about common software anti-patterns. Next to previous.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to apologise for looking even paler and scuffier than usual because I'm actually quite sick today. So I was debating whether I would come in and make you all sick or stay at home, and I decided, for good or bad, to go with the former. So we'll see how that works with. I'm going to talk about some software architecture anti-patterns, particularly to the pay TV industry. I worked in the pay TV industry for 20 years, specifically in the digital pay TV industry. And the digital pay TV industry has been extremely prone to a particular type of software architecture anti-pattern, which eventually has forced the entire industry to change. And I'll just go through that shortly. So what do you mean by a pattern or anti-pattern? I'm sure you all know this, but an architecture pattern is a reusable design approach to a commonly occurring problem. And by implication, it's assumed to be one which will point you towards a good solution. Whereas an anti-pattern is a frequently encountered one which leads in a bad solution. In fact, a nice interesting metric is if you go onto Amazon and you search for architecture patterns, you'll find about 3,000 books. Right? And if you search for architecture anti-patterns, you'll find one. And this is based on the fetchingly naive idea that if you just show people the right way to do things, that they will think, oh, well, that's a much better idea than I had. I'll just do things your way. And this is complete nonsense, of course, because there are many reasons which are nothing to do with software architecture itself, which force people or force companies or are a consequence of the way the companies are organized to arrive at a bad solution. And that's what the pay TV industry in particular has been a victim of for 20 years. And in 20 years that I've been working in the pay TV industry, which is roughly, in fact, about the duration of the digital pay TV industry, it exists for about 20 years. And we'll come back to why it exists for that long shortly. There's one anti-pattern that shows up over and over again in different places and for different reasons, and that's vendor lock-in. And it's not just because the vendors are particularly mendacious or the buyers are particularly dim. There are actually several quite distinct reasons why this actually happens. But eventually, this happened. So basically, two things happened. Eventually, several of the major industry players were forced by external competition, to do something about this. And this has actually introduced, in the last couple of years, fundamental change in the pay TV industry. And we'll discuss that in a little bit. So what is the digital pay TV industry? The digital pay TV industry is quite big, actually, and maybe not quite as big as you might imagine, but it is quite big, and it has a lot of household names at the top. So the pay TV industry is all about delivering pay TV services to you that you're prepared to pay, probably, if you're in a Western country, maybe 50, 60 euros or dollars a month, or more in the United States typically, for your pay TV service. And it's delivering to you over cable or satellite, and increasingly now over telco, and a little bit OTT and broadcast medium. So the cable operators would be household names. They'd be Virgin Media or Liberty Global, which has the UPC franchises all around Europe. Comcast, which is the largest pay TV company by revenue in the world, has about 30 million subscribers. Ziggo, Mediacom, all the Kabel Deutschland, which is 10 million subscribers in Germany. These are all relatively big companies. And we have Sky, of course, a satellite company. So the total revenue of this market is about $270 billion last year. And it's still growing. It's not growing at quite the clip it was growing at, but it is growing quite a lot. It's growing at maybe, projected to go at maybe 4% compound over the next 5 years. And interestingly, the OTT broadcasters, so OTT is delivery of TV content over the open internet, and the most famous one of those is Netflix. Even though Netflix is very, very well known, and the OTT players are getting much more known, the size relative to the overall industry is still very small. So Netflix is a very small player in the overall scheme of things, even though it's growing much faster. So this is roughly a top-level view of the pay TV industry. But then in the bottom we have the infrastructure providers. And the infrastructure providers are many of them are not household names at all, or wouldn't be familiar to anyone outside of the industry. And these are the people that provide the solutions to the operators to enable them to roll out their services. So some of them would be household names, Microsoft, maybe the likes of Accenture or Samsung. But a lot of the other companies exist only to serve the pay TV industry. So the pay TV industry has evolved to deliver complex user functionality. So these are just a random sample of some of what we might describe as our user interfaces that would be displayed to you typically on your home device, which might be an iPad in this day and age on the bottom right, but typically would be a set-top box would be displaying it on your TV. And so the functionality that it's delivering you is actually quite complex, and I'll come back to that in a little while. But this requires combining lots and lots of systems to actually deliver this functionality. So even though I'm looking at what's conceptually a relatively simple thing, I have a video up in the top right-hand corner, which is my video stream, and then I have a list of all the things that are on, and I can scroll down to the list. But it's also telling me information about the content that's on, because the picture by itself is no use to me. I need to know what it is, the description of it, what the relationships between the different things are. Are they part of a series, or are they not part of a series? I have a concept of a channel lineup, so I need to know what channels there are, and I need to know what their name is, and I need to know all the timing information about everything that's on all the different channels. And then I can probably record things. And then, more than likely, there's an element of content discovery involved, because the solution for many years of the pay TV industry to making sure you had something to watch was simply to give you more channels, which is not a very scalable solution, but it's the one that everyone's doing for a long time. So now if you have 500 channels, you have to have some sort of search functionality so you can go in and you can actually find something that you might want to watch. And that's a complex function to deliver. And also more and more, as more of the devices have got enabled for internet connectivity, there's integration with external systems. So maybe on this particular guide, I have IMDb search. IMDb is a movie database that's online on the internet. So I can select something and look on IMDb and see, well, what's the rating of it? Is it good? Is it worth recording? Is it worth watching? And so on. So a superficially simple kind of user interface is actually quite a complex piece of functionality to deliver. So the 10,000 foot or 100,000 foot helicopter pay TV architecture, they all look the same. They're all exactly the same. There are only three pieces. There's source of content and encoding of that content delivered over some network to your house. So the content sources are the TV channels, and the encoding of it allows you to compress the TV channel down so you can deliver it over a delivery network. And what leads to the vendor lock-in is that that's the only part that's standardized. So what enabled the digital pay TV market in the first place is that the way of representing video content in a very compressed form that still gave you a good user experience, that you could, there weren't too many compression artifacts and so on, is completely standardized. And it has to be, because it requires massive investment in hardware and R&D to make the hardware encoders to do this. A high-definition TV signal uncompressed is between 1.5 and 3 gigabits per second, and that's far too much to realistically deliver to any end customer in any realistic way. So by compressing it down and encoding it, you get it down to a couple of, lower than 10 megabits per second, and this is perfectly deliverable over many networks. This piece is standard, but all that gives you is pictures and sound, and that's really no good at all. What you need for the rest of the solution is you need your so-called TV platform, which takes in all the other information about all the channels you have, all the metadata, what we showed before about the description of the channel, the description of the events that are on, are they part of a series, who are the actors in them, who are the directors, all that kind of information. That's the metadata, if you like, the information about the video, and that is not standardized at all. There are many, many different ways of getting it. Then the TV platform, which are provided by the platform providers, they're all completely proprietary, and they process that metadata and make it available over the network to you in your home. And then we have the encryption and digital rights management. The digital pay TV industry was acutely aware of what happened to the music industry. What happened to the music industry was that they didn't pay enough attention or go about it the right way of trying to protect the digital content of music, and this basically destroyed the record industry. It's still limping along, but there's a very good reason why all the aging rockers are back on the road giving concerts. And it's because they don't make any money from record sales anymore. And the studios were very, very conscious and very, very wary of the fact of making their content available digitally, because they didn't want the same thing to happen to all their movie sales. And so encryption and DRM is built in to the pay TV system from the beginning. So the mechanism for encrypting the digital stream is standard. So given a key, you can decrypt it completely fine. The way of transmitting the key from the head end, from the operator to the household, is not standard at all. That's completely proprietary, and there's another nice way for vendor locking. So if we look back at our various components of the TV platform architecture, we have several anti-patterns relating to vendor lock-in. And the first one I call, you can't touch this. So basically, if we look at what happens when an operator wants to roll out a new TV platform, which they do, which historically they were doing on about a 4-year cadence, right? Major technological upgrades in digital TV have come along about every 4 years. First, there was the first standard definition products. Then about 4 years later, PVR products, so personal video recorders, became reliable enough and became useful enough. And then they had to add personal video recorders. Then it was high definition. Then it's roughly 4 or 5 years that there's a major cycle refresh in the industry, which is quite slow, but this is roughly about the time that it takes. So when they set about, and this basically applies to almost all the operators, pretty much all the operators I've ever dealt with, they set about integrating the new parts in blue that they want for their new TV platform with the existing landscape that they find in their systems. And so initially they'll select a vendor, and they'll have a picture that'll look some variant of this. It'll always be nice and clean, and it'll look like this. And they say, well, you have your existing operation support systems and your business support systems, and you've got your IT landscape and your customer relation management systems, and we're just going to slot our system in here, it'll be all great. They go, fine, that sounds plausible to me. And then they start looking into it in a little bit more detail, and then they go, well, actually, do you know, the last time we tried to change anything in our OSS system, that was a total disaster, and we really hate talking to those BSS guys, so we don't want anything to do there. And IT, well, they don't talk to us since that last instance that we had. But you see, the thing is that we've selected you, and we have a project where we're going to pay you a chunk of money to do a bunch of stuff. And we haven't got any money to make them change anything, and anyway, we don't want to. So why don't you just do it? Why don't you change your TV platform so that it fits in with all the little nuances of what we need to integrate with our OSS system, or with our IT system, with our CRM. And so what happens very, very frequently is that the TV platform vendor, and in fairness to them, they don't always want to do this, end up extending their system and extending their solution to plug into little aspects of the existing IT landscape that the operator is too scared to touch, or doesn't want to touch for some other reason, right? So what you end up is you have an initially sane architecture and a segregation of roles, but then basically this fairly rapidly bumps up against the immovable objects in the operator's own architecture and their own landscape. And it happens very, very often. You say, well, we can't touch the billing system. We can't touch that. We don't know how it works, and it was made by one guy anyway, and he doesn't speak to us anymore. I've actually seen that, actually. There was actually an operator with multiple millions of subscribers, and their entire billing system, basically the thing which did the reconciliation between video on demand assets purchased and reports to the content providers, was written by one guy. He was a contractor. He worked 2 days a week whenever he felt like it, and he charged them whatever he wanted. And they couldn't touch it. They were too scared because there was too much money involved. And they got themselves into that, but anyway. Or they'll say, remember what happened the last time we tried to change such and such. So the TV platform ends up sometimes willingly, but actually more often, and in fairness to the TV platform vendor, very reluctantly, absorbing all this functionality into their own delivery. They really don't want to do it because while the operator is only worried about their own operation, the TV platform vendor wants to sell their solution multiple times all over the place. So they don't want to be doing all this extraneous stuff. It's not their core function, but they often are forced into doing it by the operator. So this results in the vendor having extra functionality inside their product, or at least inside their estate, their code estate that they have to manage, which they don't want. And it also very frequently results in a poor quality of delivery because it's not their core competence and they don't really want to be doing it, but they're forced to do it to maintain the business. And now what you end up with is you have an extremely difficult product to replace, because now instead of having this, you actually have this. This is the product that you want to replace the next time. And this is nearly impossible because now you have a huge amount of work to do to replace it the next time. So you end up with a self-fulfilling immovable object, so now they're even harder to change than they were before you started off. Now the root cause of this is basically kind of laziness or lack of competence in the buyer team, because they just don't want to move their own systems. And so they push the work of doing that onto whichever vendor happens to be next, which generally is a TV platform vendor. They force them to do it. And this happens quite a lot, actually. The second anti-pattern, and this, there are one or two vendors who are really very good at this. This is malicious, and this is done quite deliberately. You have an architecture which looks, again, relatively sane, and there's an innocent-looking module in the middle of the TV platform. But by the time the thing is finished, it ends up being something like this, where actually all the orchestration for many of the key business functions that deliver the TV platform end up in this one module, belonging to the TV platform vendor, buried somewhere in the middle of something that nobody's noticed. So again, you have a superficially sane architecture and a segregation of roles. But basically, when you look at it closely, a huge amount of key functionality resides in one component, proprietary to that particular vendor. And this really can't happen by accident. The vendor does this on purpose. And there are a couple of vendors, who I'm not going to name on the off chance I might have to work with them again, who are famous for this. They do this all the time, right? And it's also enabled, let's say, by a certain amount of naivety or a certain amount of laziness on the part of the purchaser, right? That they don't really understand the real details of what's being provided to them. They haven't looked into enough detail to see how the functionality is segregated into the different modules, and they don't understand how difficult it would be to swap out a certain vendor or to move the solution after they've got it. So it ends up with the vendor being extremely difficult to swap out. And you end up with your operator feature roadmap being driven entirely by the vendor roadmap. And if the vendor is bigger than the operator, which can often happen, then you're completely hostage to what they want to do. This happens quite a lot. And it's generally perpetrated by the stronger system vendors as a business strategy. And they're quite open about it. You talk to them in a bar afterwards sometimes. And honestly, it seems like sometimes they just try it on to see if they can get away with it. And if they get away with it a few times, they go, well, there's another one. And they're stuck with us for 5 years or something like that. And it really is, it's done quite a lot. I think a lot of it is because a lot of the enabling of it is that some of the operators, they really aren't particularly mature in that they grow by acquisition. Like especially some of the cable operators, they grow by acquiring lots of little operators all over the place and rolling them up into one company. So they end up as a massive company, but they really didn't organically grow from a small company into a large company. They grew by financial engineering and by acquiring lots of things all over the place, and they don't have a very strong engineering heritage. This one, though, this is entirely the operator's own fault. And this is basically the opposite of the other one, where there are some operators, and they're again well known in the industry, and I'm not going to name them again because I might have to work with them again, and they basically say that, well, I'm the customer, I'm buying the stuff, I know best, I'm going to tell you what you're going to deliver. So what they do is they select a platform vendor, but then they do the opposite. They do the opposite to the other guys who want the TV platform vendor to make up for shortcomings in the operator's IT estate. What they do is they get a whole bunch of their own architects and crawl all over the TV platform vendor's product, and they say, well, I wouldn't do it that way if I were you, and in fact you're not going to do it that way because I'm the customer, so you're going to do it a different way, and I'm going to make you change. And you're going to change the interfaces to your product, you're going to change the functionality, how it's delivered, and this happens a lot. This actually happens quite a lot, right? So it happens the same way all the time. They select a vendor platform, and however, unfortunately, the customer will have a large department full of architects who feel kind of obliged to architect stuff, which is really strange because the customer will almost have a large department staffed with procurement people who never procure anything. And so there are various parts of the organization who don't do what they're supposed to do, whereas the architects in organizations like this, which are fundamentally set up incorrectly, they feel obliged to change, to enforce change on the products that they're procuring, as opposed to drawing boundaries around what they're getting and saying, okay, we'll take this functionality from you, but how you actually do it, that's your role. And these are typically the more powerful pay TV operators who have gone. They're the more powerful ones. They can force vendors to behave in the way that they think is in their advantage. But actually all they're doing is they get a much slower delivery time because everyone's constantly fighting about how to do things. And somebody on the project is going to be unhappy most of the time. In fact, probably most of the people will be unhappy most of the time. And it would be very hard, again, to swap out the vendor because you force them to customize the solution very heavily to suit your environment. In fact, this is actually quite common in a couple of operators, and actually the worst one. And in a couple of operators who do this, the exact same sequence happens every time. What they do is they have a major refresh cycle. They decide to select a vendor. They go through this process with the vendor, so everybody hates everybody for 4 or 5 years. Everybody just can't stand the sight of everybody. And then they get to the end and they go to the next vendor selection cycle process and they say, okay, we're going to select new vendors, but the only criteria is we can't select any of the vendors we used last time because we hate them. So every time they go to a new cycle, they select a whole new set of vendors and they go through the exact same thing again. And after doing this 4 or 5 times, it still hasn't occurred to them that the only common pattern between all of their vendor selection cycles is them. They're the only ones who are still there all the time. And they get a whole new set of vendors, and the same thing happens every time, and they're still doing it. But the pay TV industry is particularly prone to vendor lock-in for one particular reason, and it's these, set-top boxes. Set-top boxes are the vendor lock-in goldmine, right? They're the nirvana, the ultimate, because they contain proprietary digital rights management and conditional access, proprietary middleware, a proprietary application execution environment, and they basically contain a tight and not exposed feature coupling to the TV head end. This is the real killer, right? So certain nefarious vendors, and they do this quite deliberately, right, is let's suppose we look at this. So let's suppose we have some user-facing functionality, some nominally simple user-facing functionality like search or content protection or listings or something like this. You can implement this in several different ways. You can implement it in the head end, you can implement it in the set-top box, or you can implement it in both places. And if you implement it in both places, and this is typically what most middleware vendors will try to do, quite on purpose, it's extremely difficult to move any part of the solution. They'll say, well, you can't throw out our set-top box software because then this and this and this functionality will stop working. And the digital rights management, well, that's very important for your content protection, and that has a set-top box component and has a head-end component, and you can't get rid of it because you've negotiated all your content deals with all your content providers. This was done. This was the real thing that really drove the TV industry to change. The fact that the set-top boxes contain proprietary components and proprietary software that made it extremely difficult to move the vendors, right? Because they simply wouldn't license their technology to competing partners. And so you couldn't have one vendor in the set-top box and a different vendor in the head end. That just won't work. They would refuse to do that. So now, just before we go on to the next bit, so choosing a vendor isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can be a partner with a vendor and have a very good relationship with them and quite deliberately choose them. And choosing a particular vendor might be fine if the vendor has a committed roadmap and can deliver features that you want rapidly and in a timely manner, and you have a good relationship with them and you trust them, well then why not? However, the experience in the TV industry over many operators, time and time again, is not like this. You get glacially slow feature delivery, you get excessive costs and license fees, and you get really a reduced cost of components or software vendors. And the reason that this, in the TV industry, that they got away with this for a long time, is that the TV industry isn't really hyper-competitive. Well, at least hasn't been until recently. It's very rare that in the same geographical area you'd have more than one cable operator. It's very rare. You might have more than one satellite operator, but even that's pretty rare. In many cases, you might have a nominal choice of satellite or cable operator, but actually you might not really have a choice because you might not be allowed to put a satellite dish in your house and whatever. And so it isn't really that hyper-competitive an environment. And it only started to become much more competitive when two things happened. One was that the telcos, who were also glacially slow in getting out together, eventually got broadband speeds high enough in enough of their territories that they began to think, well, maybe we should offer an IPTV service. We should offer a TV service over our own network. And that started to happen. And then, no matter who you were, you had a big telco competitor in your own landscape. And the pay TV industry, although, whatever, 270 billion a year, is dwarfed by the telecoms industry. Like the biggest pay TV operator in the world by revenue, Comcast, has 30 million subscribers. Compare that with the biggest, some of the big telcos, like the likes of Vodafone, for example, has 450 million subscribers worldwide. So they're not in the same ballpark. If the telcos really wanted to push hard against the cable operators and the satellite operators are a bit worried. And the second thing that happened to force them to change was that, again, the underlying broadband infrastructure was good enough that something like Netflix could exist. Because 20 years ago, Netflix couldn't have existed. 10 years ago, Netflix probably couldn't have existed. But now Netflix is a real threat to these people. Because Netflix is cheaper, and Netflix doesn't have this legacy. Netflix is built, and Netflix is just an example, but Netflix is the most successful one. Netflix is built from the ground up as a web era company. Netflix build all their own software. Netflix make 4,000 releases a year. 4,000. Because they're organized from the ground up as an agile company. So once you get a certain amount of seniority in the development organization, you can push a release to live. And they do that all the time. They do A/B testing. They segregate their customers into different areas. They allow their engineers to try things out. They're working at a web speed velocity of delivery of features to their customers. Compare that with the likes of a traditional, a B-Sky-B, let's say, that might take 4 years to bring a major feature refresh to their platform, although they've changed a little bit now. But traditionally, if one of the TV operators got a release out twice a year, that was a success. Major release twice a year, pretty good. 4 times a year, absolutely outstanding. 4,000 times a year does not compute for them. They just don't understand that. So basically, eventually, forced by these two things, so forced by the rise of the telcos in actually trying to encroach in their space, and the likes of Netflix, some larger operators decided to react to it eventually. So they eventually saw that it was hurting their business. Slow project delivery times, measured certainly in years. Never a TV project, a major one, was delivered in less than a year, ever. Very slow feature delivery, high software cost, new entrants. And 2 approaches were taken to this. Some operators, some of the larger ones, they basically doubled down with a particular vendor. And they said, okay, we've used you for years. We're not very happy with the speed of your delivery. What we're going to do is we're going to take a large development team from you in-house. You're going to come and they're going to sit in our premises, and we're going to manage them. And they are going to deliver a software release for us. And we want to see greatly improved delivery speed. And this is what, for example, BSkyB do now. BSkyB is a particular vendor. They grew their own in-house development team to be multiple hundreds of developers. And they took a team from their key vendor, also multiple hundreds of developers, and they bought a building, and they co-locate them in that building, and it's the software team managed by Sky that delivers the software for their platform. And that really has greatly increased the rate at which they can make software, and it seems to be doing them. It seems to be doing a lot of good. But what the other alternative, which Comcast has done actually, Comcast, which Comcast did was they built a complete set-top box reference design from scratch. Well, not from scratch, of course, because now the set-top boxes are reasonably powerful, so they can run Linux. So Comcast took a Linux-based distribution, built a distribution for set-top boxes, built a complete reference design, and said, right, all our suppliers are using this reference design, that's it. But then what they did, which is go one step further, is they opened it up for anyone to use. It completely disrupted the industry. So basically, Comcast developed what they call the reference design kit, the RDK, and they're big enough to be able to do this, right? So they have 30 million subscribers and they're the biggest operator by revenue in the world. So they developed a standard set-top box software stack, and then they set up a joint venture between themselves and 2 competitors, Time Warner Cable and Liberty Global. They put the ownership for that source code into that third-party vehicle, because if it was tightly controlled by Comcast, their competitors would be too nervous about actually using it. So basically, they put all the source code for that software reference stack into this RDK LLC, a joint venture between Comcast themselves and Liberty Global, and other operators who want to be involved are invited to join that actually. And they license it to anybody who wants it. And this instantly, well, over the course of a couple of months, which is pretty instant in the TV business, instantly transformed the landscape of the TV software in the United States. Because all of a sudden you had Comcast and Time Warner saying, well, we're not taking any software from anybody unless it's RDK standard. And to become a licensee of the RDK imposes certain conditions. It means that you can make contributions if you like, but they must be royalty free. So the set-top box software, the majority of the set-top box software is non-royalty bearing anymore, as opposed to royalties and licenses that were paid continually for 20 years on all the set-top boxes before. They have regularly robust releases. So basically, contributions are coming in from each of these 200 licensees all the time. There's a full cycle which tests these contributions and tests them onto onto reference platforms and makes them available then to everyone in the community at the same time, instantly. This shared repository is actually managed out of Ireland by a team from S3 on behalf of the RDK LLC. But as I say before, there are over 200 licensees of this. This is the first time that there's actually been a reference stack for set-top boxes that's completely disrupting the middleware industry for the other players. And even the middleware vendors, the guys who were previously providing software which was proprietary and completely locked in for set-top boxes, now have to say, well, our software is RDK compliant, and we have most of this stuff is all RDK, but we have these little things here that you might want to take and license from us. They still have to operate in that mode. They have to be RDK compliant, or else they're locked out of most of the US market now. And this is entirely driven by the fact that the feeling from the large operators, from Comcast and from Sky and from all the other people, was that they'd basically been stiffed for about 15 years by their software vendors. And this is what the RDK looks like. It's basically a Linux-based set-top box architecture, with most components being open source or provided by the RDK, so therefore license-free to all the RDK licensees. And there are well-defined interfaces for interfacing with third-party components, so you can no longer completely lock in digital rights management into the platform. You have to comply with the RDK APIs to put your DRM component in. So you can choose component A or component B or component C, but you're not going to be able to lock in the same way as you could before. And the next steps for the RDK are also interesting, actually. The RDK has been such a success for set-top boxes that now Comcast have said, with a contribution from Cisco, that they're going to make exactly the same thing for broadband routers for CPE. So CPE was kind of a little bit the same thing. You were getting slow releases, vendor reliant. You'd be locked into your CPU provider. Now, what's coming later this year is that Comcast, basically using a large contribution from Cisco, and Cisco are on board with this, is they're going to develop exactly the same reference design kit for home routers, fully functional home router software kit, and make that available free. And this will also be shared source. It's not fully open source, but it's shared. It's shared in the sense that in order to see it, you must become a licensee. So once you become a licensee, you see everything. But if you're not a licensee, you don't get to see it. And the goal is to avoid being stiffed by vendors yet again, which was going on for far too long. Okay, thanks.
Founder of Integrate Thinking. And she's going to talk on a collaborative approach to business problem solving.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to talk at the IASA. Always tempted to say ISA, and I'm glad I didn't. I know I'm between you and your coffee break, so this is a very dangerous slot. So I'll try and progress fairly quickly through this. I'm the CTO of S3. Excellent. Liam, you're out of a job. So I've taken my talk and used the theme of reboot everything this morning because I want to talk to you a little bit about how product management and architecture might work together to help companies evolve their product strategy. So I'll give you a little bit of my background, which is not the CTO of S3 or the owner of Structure One or founder of Structure One. I have an engineering background. I started in S3 actually many years ago, didn't evolve to become the CTO. But I worked in the engineering department. So my background is development. I trained as an engineer in DCU. And I worked in S3, and I kind of evolved through a number of different engineering roles over the years. And in my last role in industry, I worked for a company called OpenNet, I suppose, the largest indigenous software company in Ireland. And I headed the product management team. OpenNet are also in the telco space and have, I suppose, at the time that I was managing the products, we started with about 8 products. We consolidated down to 4 key products, managing a team of 8 product managers. And we have Agile. So I'll talk about that later on in terms of how we implemented the product owner role there. I chaired the ISA Product Management Working Group, and that group was really responsible for trying to promote the discipline of product management to technology companies in Ireland. Although a lot of companies think they have product management, they have variations of it. And certainly in OpenNet's history, it would have evolved through a number of different stages. In the work that I'm doing with companies, I'm kind of in awe of CEOs and how they can have an idea and, to Jonathan's talk earlier on, inspire others to follow them. I think more than anything else, according to Forbes, the thing that entrepreneurs or CEOs have more than anything else, a marketing prowess or finance or even the great idea, is the desire. And I think without that desire to do something, nothing will happen. And so I suppose I had a desire to change the path, my career path, in October 2013. I was VP of Product Management in OpenEd, a fantastic company, great opportunity, but I could see that there was a gap in the market. I've been doing work with Enterprise Ireland and the Irish Software Association. I saw there was a gap in terms of helping companies who were trying to establish the discipline of product management. Working at EI encouraged me, I suppose, to look at doing some consultancy in this area. So I set up Integrated Thinking to mentor, really in-house mentoring, and also doing some training in the area of product management. Okay, so again, the purpose of today's talk is to really look at how companies can reboot their approach to product strategy. Just want to talk a little bit about how, because I often get asked, how do you know when it's time to bring in product management into your company? And I think if you look at early stage companies, they're very strong founder, often a very technical founder with a very good vision and inspired to solve a problem in the market. And so they have maybe a very small team that could be 6, 7 people, and they are very clear about the problem they're trying to solve. Otherwise, they may not have got investment. First thing they do is write a business plan that looks at the market, the customer, the problem or need they're trying to solve, the competitors in that space. So everybody is quite aligned and clear on what they want to do. But as the company grows, the CEO will hire some engineers for us to deliver on that technical vision that they have, so to solve that problem that they've identified. And then they look to hire marketing people and sales people. And what can happen is sometimes the CEO or founder moves into a different position in the company. They may become the CTO or CIO or a COO, or they may leave the company altogether. And in that gap, there's a vacuum. And who steps up now to lead the product strategy? So you may have got investment based on a very strong business plan. You evolve, you create a product. The CEO or founder becomes busy. And certainly in OpenEd's case, the founder, Joe Hogan, would have moved into a CTO position. A new CEO was brought in. So in that gap, who's now leading the product strategy? Who do people turn to understand where the company is going? And it can be a dangerous vacuum, because in that vacuum, one of those sales, marketing, or engineering will step up. And in a lot of technology companies, it's engineering. And engineering decides, I know what we're doing next. I've got this cool thing that we're going to put in the product, without really thinking. There aren't too many engineers who spend a phenomenal amount of time in the market talking to customers. So what happens is, they've seen this cool technology and they think, this is where we're going next. We're going to add this feature because it's going to make a huge difference. And I think we've all used the products that have become feature soup, that have just continued adding features. And often it is because there isn't any bigger vision beyond the technology. And I've talked to companies who will say, you know, the way we validate with customers is to go out the revolving door and back in the same revolving door to talk to ourselves. We don't talk to customers, except when they ring us with a problem with our product. We don't actively go out to validate. So I think if you look at this, I suppose all companies tend to evolve through these stages. They start as very technology-driven. They've got a good idea and they know the technology that's going to solve it. The next people that get hired are sales. And in that mode, sales are out. And what do sales care about at the end of the year? And let's be under any illusions. I think that when sales go out there, they want to make their commission. The danger you run there of letting sales take over is that you will become bespoke. You will have a lot of solutions that are being created, different solutions created for different customers. And it's a dangerous place for a company to be. Then you win a few customers, and now you're on the competitive landscape. There's competitors out there aware of you, and you're aware of competitors. The danger here is that you look to become me too. You look at competitors and think, just because they've got a feature, we're going to have the same feature. Then you can become customer driven, and again, you win a few big customers, maybe a few big telcos in our case. And that's an interesting place to be, a great place to be, but also in terms of driving the strategy, that customer can be very vocal in terms of where they want the product to be. So you evolve into this place where the customer is now driving your roadmap. Really, the holy grail and the ideal place to be is a market-driven company. That you can listen to your customers, you're aware of the competitive landscape, you can hear sales demands, but you're looking at the market. What are the needs? Will this feature solve a problem for more than one customer? What does the market want? Can I sell this repeatedly? Because if you're not looking at the market, you won't scale. If you're trying to look at every individual customer's demands, you seriously run the risk of creating bespoke software, and then you're a services company, you're not a product company. And product companies to scale need to be very focused on the broader demands of the market. So in engineering strategy, again, we spoke about this. Many technology-driven products have features that are just not needed or are too complex. And the danger of an engineering-driven strategy is feature soup, analysis paralysis. You go in, you start looking at a technology, you don't budget it, it goes on for 6 months trying to think about whether, and in the meantime, the competitors have passed you out. And you also kind of run the lack of budgeting for engineering. We had this issue ourselves before where, you know, we'd ask for something, but we never were really sure when it would get done and when, you know, the product would be available. And so it's one of the complexities of it's done when it's done in Agile. For a product management perspective, you do need to be able to give some budgets to the engineering team. So I suppose perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. And I think that's the MVP approach in Agile. You really need to be careful that you understand clearly the problem or need that you're trying to solve, and you create the product that's going to solve that. Again, a sales request tailored to meet individual customer demands is a dangerous place to be. So letting the sales organization move up in that vacuum and lead the company. Yes, you are generating revenue, but are you generating the right kind of revenue? Are you becoming a services company? And is that where you want to be? But if you want to be a product company, you need to be aware of the market. So why have a combined sales marketing strategy? It's really, if you look at Ryanair's strategy at the start, their strategy was they looked at their customer base and they said the most important, number one priority for those customers is to fly from destination A to destination B. Whether they can do that in comfort or actually have an assigned seat, they're kind of secondary requirements in their mind. So they went out and they delivered an MVP that made sure you got from A to B in a timely manner. But whether you enjoyed the experience, that was another thing, and most of us didn't. And now they've pivoted, I suppose, back to a model because they've been dealing with a phenomenal amount of complaints and issues. I'm not entirely sure of his reason for going softer, but it probably is to do with the amount of stress and frustration that they're dealing with customers and the cost of dealing with that, perhaps. But they've pivoted now. And so I think the thing is, just because you think you know the product that the customer wants doesn't mean that they do. And often, if you talk to your customers, their reasons for buying your product are very different to the reasons you think they did. So it's very important to get out there and talk to them. So my message is evolve from silos to bringing in product management as the gravitational force that pulls everything together. And that, Steve Jobs would have said this, product management is that gravitational force that pulls everybody together. And it's back to alignment, as we were talking about earlier on, communication, making sure that everybody knows the longer-term vision. And I totally agree with Jonathan in terms of the mission and vision. When I go into companies initially, we kind of do a corporate capability survey, and it's very interesting when you ask the leadership team and that's the leadership team, what the mission and vision for the company is. And you get 5, 6 different answers. And so if they're not clear, and it's not that you expect, and you know, it's all great if we can come up with that fantastic sentence, but even that you're roughly close in what you're trying to achieve, because that's the starting point for product management. Product management hang their strategy off a corporate strategy. So I'd say to CEOs, it's not about having a weighty tome that breaks your foot when you drop it. It's more that you have 3 to 4 bullet points saying, we want to increase revenues by X% in the next 12 months. We want to move into a new market. That's kind of the corporate strategy. Break down, have a mission, have a vision, but also understand the top 3 to 4 things that you're trying to achieve as a company. Because if product management don't understand that, how are they going to deliver a strategy that delivers on it? Oops. So bringing in product management, here's what it achieves. You've got a clear market view, a deep understanding of the customer, a validated business model, strong vision and strategy for the product. You've got somebody managing pricing and licensing, or profit and loss, whichever way you want to look at that P&L, but the return on investment on the product. They end-of-life products. I think a lot of companies forget to get rid of products. They just keep them there forever. So it's very important to look at how you end-of-life them. They support the selling process, and they manage the prioritization. And this is where the contention may come between engineering and product management. Is I used to be asked, give me your top 10 priorities. I can't give you my top 10 priorities until I know roughly what it's going to cost as well from an engineering perspective. So it's that collaborative working. It's how I might choose my top 10 priorities may vary depending on the budget that I have and what engineering can deliver. So today, I just wanted to talk about moving from strategy to execution. What are the challenges and where do architecture, because really this is an architecture audience, so where do architecture and product management work well together in the delivery and in this reboot? The first thing is ensuring everyone is on the same wavelength. The hugely important thing, it's all about communication, alignment, and how do product management and engineering do that? The value of product management, they're the vision. They articulate the vision. They're the voice of the customer into engineering, certainly, and to architecture. They represent the market, so they're not just the voice of the customer in that. And I hear I think a lot of companies think just because they've hired a product owner, they've got product management. That's not the case. The danger when you hire a product owner is that they've come from an engineering background and they're effectively an engineer in a different guise. Really, you need to have that combination of product owner or architect. And maybe I'm being controversial, but I think the product architect often makes a very good product owner. But having that role, that's a very strong foot in engineering and then another foot in commercial, working with a commercial product manager. The danger of making the same person the product owner and the commercial product manager is time. It's very difficult to get out and meet customers, to fly and do meetings and to be around the world and also be 24/7 from an agile perspective working with the engineers, which is what they expect. And they prioritize, hugely important, the MVP, back to the thing of, I've never come across a company who has enough resources to deliver, and that's exactly what Jonathan was saying. It's always true, so how do you prioritize? It's portfolio management. You've got too many things on your plate, how do you pick the things you're going to work on in the next release? The value of product solution architecture is working collaboratively with the team, guiding and reviewing the technology, understanding the business priorities. So they work with product management often to help understand the priorities and then reflect those into engineering. Mentoring, I think, rather than dictating. Again, I've worked in an environment where the architect would come in with the F-spec and the design document and give them to engineering and say, do it. I don't like that personally. As a product manager, I think a collaborative environment where you've got people working together and you're looking to engineering to be creative and innovative about how they solve problems. That's really what you want, and where you've got the architect guiding that work so that they don't go off track. Technology roadmaps, managing technology risk. So a combined product management architecture role, or product management and architecture working very well together. They manage the backlog into engineering, representing the business needs of the market, understanding and articulating the vision, and managing delivery through engineering. I think it's really, I always use the what and why and how, and product management are the what and why, and engineering are the how. And I think architecture sit between both and help product management achieve the what and the why with engineering. Would you agree? Yeah.
So it depends on the domain, I guess. Lots of very technically intensive products, typically the product owner, product manager is actually the architect.
Mm-hmm.
I see just plain observation.
Yeah, yeah. And, certainly in OpenNet, when we were really establishing product management properly, it used to be product marketing, but when they really took on product management, there was a question when Agile came in, well, where does the product, they turned to product management, they said, come sit with us, you're now the product owner, come sit in our pods, and that's the way it's going to be, and don't get on a plane again because you're 24/7 needed with us. And we realized, and we knew very quickly with customers in 24 countries, we just couldn't do that. So we had to figure out a way of working. And the architect stepped up a lot into that role of product owner, working on the backlog, working with the commercial product manager. And where that relationship was very strong, it worked beautifully. Where the product owner was trying to do everything, look at the vision, create a product strategy, talk to customers, look at an internal value prop, do all those other things that are in the product management remit, they really struggled. And so it's definitely worth considering that if you're bringing in product management, just hiring a product owner is not bringing in product management. You need to look at the other aspects of the discipline and how they're being resourced. What product management and architecture shouldn't do, I suppose, with engineering is constantly change the bigger picture. So if the overall strategy is continuously changing, then that's very, very disruptive. It's fine, we're all agile, everything's great, we can pull off a requirement and put on a new one. But if the big picture is changing every week, then it's very, very hard to understand where you're trying to go. I don't think they should get too involved in the how. I think let the engineers shine. I think know the boundaries. Product management do a really good job, if they do their job really well, of understanding the customer very well, of understanding the market, of understanding the competitors, and of bringing that information into engineering. Quite often that internal value proposition is not shared very well with engineering, though, and often they don't know why they're developing something. They just have a feature on a backlog that's pulled off and handed to them, but they can't link it back to a business problem that they're solving for the customer. That's product management's job. They come in with the themes for the release, high-level epics, and then you break those down into smaller features or smaller requirements for the release. That makes sense. And they do that working with the architects and the team. You can't let others change the backlog. I mean, this is, often a source of conflict as well. So it's really don't let other people own the backlog. The product manager owns the backlog. Whatever goes on or off the backlog is owned by product management, but everybody can feed in all stakeholders. You listen to everybody, but the product, one person, is a single source of truth. And dictate rather than collaborate. It's all about collaboration in Agile. The second challenge, I suppose, is building the right solution. I think lean development, product managers love lean development in the sense that you get an MVP, you get an early prototype, you can go out and validate with the market, you can see whether you're on the right track and you can feed that back in. The issue, I suppose, is to make sure that everybody, I didn't realize that thing span until I looked at it yesterday. Sorry, I'm making you all dizzy now. But brainstorming and working with others can increase everybody's creativity, and I think it really is about architecture and product management working well together with the team, and that everybody feels they have something to contribute. I think where negativity starts to come in between product management and engineering is a lack of understanding of the boundaries and the roles and the responsibilities. If people don't understand what the other person is bringing to the thing, bringing to the game, then they're just negative about it. It's fluffy, it's stupid, it's marketing. I mean, people did say, she's gone to the dark side when I kind of moved to product management because they saw it as marketing. You're no longer an engineer, you're not one of us. So it is a case that we're all trying to deliver on a corporate objective for the CEO, so we all are part of that and understand the part that everybody plays in it. For every problem, there is one solution which is simple, neat, and wrong. And I think, product management and architecture need to work together to ensure they get the right solution to the problem. And again, you have to understand the problem to know that there is a right or wrong solution to it. And that's where architecture and product management have a very, very strong influence on what engineering do. So I think working with architects can alleviate a lot of the execution challenges. I know if anybody feels it's a controversial thing to say it about whether architects do make good product owners. I think they do. I think in a company that can't afford to hire a product architect and a product owner, it's a nice compromise. And I've seen it work very, very well, certainly in OpenNet. They provide guidance and mentoring, facilitating bang for buck. And I think this was a really important thing, again, for us, was understanding that we were getting the return on investment. Because, you know, engineers say, oh, it's a big job. You know, like when you ask a builder to do something and it's like, I wouldn't do it that way. And it's kind of scary when you're going in as a product manager, when you're told it's going to be 6 months and you're thinking. So what we did was we costed feature teams. We costed the agile teams. So we knew an agile team was costing us roughly X per month. So when the engineer said it's going to take 2 months, 2 feature teams, we knew exactly what that was going to cost. And then we went, geez, like 200 grand just to do that feature. Do we really want that? And we were working on metrics of, let's say, 3 times, up between 3 and 5 times return on investment to make a decision. So would we make 3 times that investment on that feature? Very good rough guide. So if it's going to cost 500,000, will I make 1.5 million on that feature? How will I do that? Is it going to generate more sales? Is it going to make the customer love us more? Why would I invest that money? So I think, again, architecture help you get the problem solved for the best, cheapest amount of money. And I think that's really what you want to do, is how do I get an MVP out there as quickly as possible that's going to solve the problem but isn't going to make us bankrupt. And then they bridge the gap, because I think don't underestimate the respect element, I think, and the fact that there can be issues there. And I think a strong relationship between the product manager and the architect means that that respect, you know, possibly is better within the company. And that's what I wanted to show, is maintaining that mutual respect. Who's on the left and who's on the right, product management or engineering. So what we say about her, you know, about product management are really poacher turned gamekeeper. They were once, because often they were engineers, and now they've become product managers. It's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house to have the product owner come from engineering. You know, I've heard all these things said. So I think we have to be very careful of the language that we use about each other, about marketing, about sales, and about engineering, and realize that we all add value. I think, you know, I spoke about the product management or engineering paying lip service to product management. That's a challenge. And I think it's also a challenge when product management get too involved in the how and start to dictate things. So I think, you know, really it is passing a baton. There is a point at which you go, right, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Thoughts on a postcard, please. How are we going to do this? And you work collaboratively together to do that. So it is a very tight relationship, but it can go horribly wrong, I think, if it's very siloed. So this is kind of my view of the breakdown of product management and engineering management. And again, I think use things like RACI models within your company: responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. I used to be told all the time, you own the product, therefore it's your problem. I was asked by the head of engineering, had I read the 2,000-page user manual before it was going to be released, because if there was a problem with it, it was my issue, because I own the product. Silly stuff. You know, just because you own the product, you may be accountable, but you're not responsible. And it's very important that you make that differentiation. I don't write the code, but it's very important. It doesn't have too many bugs when I go out as a product manager. So make sure that the differentiation is clear. Product management own the strategy. They reflect the strategy in the product backlog. They define the what and the why. They articulate the vision. They ensure the right product is built at the right time, and they represent the customer. Engineering contribute to, but they don't own the strategy. They're the technical lead and visionary on the technology roadmap. Again, if Solaris are changing to version 7.5, I might not know that, but I'd like engineering to tell me. That's their job. They refine the what, and they deliver on the how. They manage the resources on the project, and they understand and articulate advances in technology. I think the force that binds them all together is you guys, architects. I think they really are. Again, another challenge, not focusing on just features. And again, I think a lot of companies that I work with say they have a real challenge. They're great. They jump to, I have a process for product management. Step 11 is working with the backlog through engineering. Most companies that I start with jump straight to step 11. They have a backlog, but they have no idea where it came from. And it's generally a set of requirements that have come from calls with customers or irate customers ringing in, or things that engineering thought would be great to do. But No real link back to will they add any business value, what will the return on investment in looking at those be? And so you end up with feature soup. And that can happen when you're focused too much on the competitors, me too, when you're focused too much on your customers, every single customer who's paying you a lot of money. You know what, you can actually say no. And I remember saying this to the sales team again in OpenNet one day, and there was an audible gasp from the team in the conference because they were like, oh, say no, are you kidding me? But we actually did start saying, not now, maybe in the next release. And you know what? They were absolutely fine. Once they saw we had a roadmap and we had a plan and that it made sense, they weren't that upset about that thing that they'd asked for after all. But when they weren't getting a very strong vision, then they were going to start suggesting things to us. Okay, I think we've covered all those, architect. And the final one is gating the deployment strategies. Again, you can have a fantastic product over there on the right-hand side that people just keep adding to as they deploy it. So product management and architecture, it is your job to make sure that the product is being deployed in the best way possible, that it's not, you're not adding on extra pieces of code and patching it as you're going along, that everything is done in a very controlled way. Feature requests, change requests, management, understanding that this, so if a customer wants something, they're really willing to pay for it, then it's a change request. If you think it's something that the broader customer base will get value from, it's a feature request and it goes in and becomes a requirement on the backlog. You can do both, but you need to do it in a very ordered way. It has to be done, managed through product management and architecture. Okay, so product management and architecture, review the sales deployments, ensure the integrity of the product isn't compromised, learn and iterate. Because I think as you look at deployments, you could ignore the deployment and the services team and how they're deploying the product, but I think you get huge insight from how the product's actually being used. Learn from it, iterate it, maybe update the backlog, and avoid multiple co-branches if you can, because I think a lot of companies suffer from that. So the key learnings for me, I think, well, I hope for today is have a single source of truth around requirements. Product management are that single source of truth, working very closely with engineering and architecture. Practice continuous improvement. It takes time to put a new process in place. It takes time to reboot. Make sure you try things out and then change it if it's not working. Stay strategic. Tactical development doesn't help your product focus. You need to stay strategic. Understand the boundaries of responsibility. Build strong relationships of trust. I can't emphasize that enough because I think where that relationship of trust has broken down in a company, it can be hugely negative force. Remember, product management is a discipline, not a person. So it's a discipline that crosses the entire company. So just because you've hired a product manager doesn't mean that discipline is in place. You need to make sure you put the processes in place. Okay, that's me.